Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we have a brand new video reviewing Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith Deluxe Edition. Now, this is a very unique volume because it's the same. I don't have the physical copy of the original one, but I have it in here. This is where I really read it. And it's a very different book, to be honest with you. It's pretty different in terms of like formatting and style, and it's a different kind of deal. But yeah, this is it in here, and then you go in here. I guess it's not that different, but you have footnotes. It's bigger. Yeah, it's better. I like it. I like this way. But yeah, we're going to start off with just, reviewing the cover and all that. Then we'll get into the actual material. So this is brand new. This just came out a couple weeks ago, I think. 1 or 2 weeks ago. And it's phenomenal. It's really cool. So this is for Revenge of the Sith's 20th anniversary. The novel's been re-released with footnotes by Matthew Stover. So behind the scenes details on him and George working on the book. Primarily that's why I got it, but I also got it because it's absolutely gorgeous. Let me take this thingy off for just now, and then I'll put it back on later. Yeah, this is the book. And then you open it here, and there's this really cool concept art of Anakin and Padme. And we could really go deep into that image, that single image, and what this means, and the lighting of this. And you got the light outside and Anakin leaning into the darkness, worrying about Padme, right? I don't know. I could go into that forever, but that's really cool. That's one of the things. And then back here, you see Vader being put together. So you can infer the story, and you can infer what happens based off of these two pieces of art alone. You're like, oh, he's Anakin, now he's Vader. And that's the story of Revenge. And then you have the main climax on the front cover, the fight on Mustafar. And yeah, this is like really nice, like foil cover too. Like, this is very unique. I don't own any super deluxe. And normally with chapter books, I just get the one I see. Like, if it's what I call the tiny box legends books, which are like, the prints like this big. Let me find one. Oh yeah, I have Deceived over there. Oh shit. Like this, where they're like tiny as fuck, and you have to like squint. I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's words. Like, who gives a shit what that's how I've been. But now that I got this, I'm like, oh, this is actually a collector's item. I didn't know books could be that, but you know what? I knew some could, but the ones I own, which I own most Star Wars books, I just, hope they're in good condition and call it a day. But, yeah, so that was the front. I think it's a wraparound. Yeah, so let's take this off for a minute. This is the book with it's just a wraparound of the best scene in cinematic history. One of the best, yeah. I'd have to think before I speak in terms of the best, but definitely up there. So now getting into the actual book. Every review I've watched on this is just them talking about the cover for 20 minutes, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. Turning point for the entire Star Wars saga is at hand. Pretty cool. Moving on. Yo, what the heck? Hold on. Is there a page here, or am I just tripping balls? I think I'm tripping. Yeah, I'm tripping. Okay. Look at this. Holy crap. That's really cool. That's not in that one, tell you what. This is really cool. Yo. Holy crap. Oh, shit. Is this in the other one? It's not, I don't think, right? I don't think... No. Oh, he added on to it. Yeah, okay. The author respectfully dedicates this adaptation to George Lucas. With gratitude for the dreams of a generation and of generations to come, for 28 years and counting, thank you, sir. The author wishes to additionally dedicate this deluxe edition to the fans because even after so many years, you still care. There you go. One thing I don't like about this is they put the stupid canon timeline in here, because that's just not true to when this came out or anything. I don't like that at all. I really don't. Fuck canon. Canon sucks ass. There's an author's note. Okay, that wasn't in there. That I know was not in there. Okay, well, let's read this then. Author's note. To my best recollection, I met the man in January 2004. It was my third time out at Skywalker Ranch. The other 2 visits were for story conferences for the New Jedi Order and Clone Wars publishing projects, respectively. Each of these meetings happened in different rooms in different buildings, and I struggle with keeping them straight. I have an idea that this one was in an executive conference room on the 2nd floor of the main house, because I remember being escorted through a big hall on the way, past a table that held a genuinely vast, highly detailed scale model of a Victory-class Star Destroyer that someone had given to him as a gift. It was maybe 8 or 10 feet long and had been built entirely of some preposterous number, 35,000 or more, of flat Lego bricks. It was among the niftiest pieces of painstaking craftsmanship I had ever seen. I wish now that I'd taken more time to really look it over, because it was genuinely amazing. But right then I had no attention to spare. This meeting they were walking me into would be the biggest thing that had ever happened in my professional career. I'd spent days prepping, and there was no space in my brain for anything else, because I had this tricky idea. It had come to me during the panic attack I'd suffered after signing the contract to write this novelization, which had ignited because I'd foolishly committed to write the keystone in the arc of the Skywalker saga for the biggest audience of my career, and the entire Star Wars loving universe would be hoping for a thrilling space opera, despite the plain fact that every main plot point had been spoiled for decades. Add the challenge of writing a novelization without ever seeing the final movie because the movie wasn't done, and it wouldn't be out before the book went to the printer. I would be armed with only the script and the collective Lucasfilm knowledge of Star Wars. What saved me then was my early training. More than 20 years before I signed that contract, I'd had the good fortune to study theater history under a professor who was an authority on ancient Greek drama. Every single one of the great Greek tragedians had faced exactly my trouble. Their audience knew the story going in, and they had some tricks they would pull to make their plays dramatic anyway. I figured I could steal a couple of these for this book. The more I thought about Greek tragedy, the better it seemed to fit. The classical tragedies were drawn from Greek mythology and legend, right? Also, if I needed any further excuse, ancient Greek tragedies were traditionally performed as single acts without intermissions, like modern movies. And they were usually presented in actual, no kidding, wait for it, trilogies. I mean, come on, how could I resist? I hope to present the story explicitly as a tragic myth, with language and style more formalized and darker in tone than people generally expect from Star Wars fiction. After all, I intend to argue that this story is special. It's different from any other Star Wars story, not only because it's the final film, or so we thought at the time, but because this story is the true foundation that underlies all the rest, and it should feel different from the very first page. But evoking the great tragedies was only part of my idea, and I expected that part to be an easy lift for the reasons I sketched above. The rest, however, was gnawing holes in my stomach lining because I wanted to fold in elements of the larger Star Wars Expanded Universe, EU. The EU was the catch-all name at the time for all the licensed Star Wars media, including hundreds of novels for all ages, tabletop and digital RPGs, comics, and even, if memory serves, a black and white newspaper strip from the 1980s. I desperately needed EU material to make this story work, not because the EU had been part of my life ever since Splinter the Mind's Eye, and definitely not because it'd be extremely cool to incorporate elements of those stories into this novelization. Okay, it was cool as hell, but that wasn't the reason I needed it. Mostly, it was part of the dodge to skate around my not knowing what the film would actually look like issue. Not having that knowledge, I would instead lean on one thing that literature just plain does better than film. In a film, you can watch a character experience interesting stuff. In a book, you can be that character while they experience the interesting stuff. You can see what they see, feel what they feel, and think what they think. This was where the EU came in. It's all about context. I figured that whatever emotional power this book could generate would spring from how well we know these characters and how much we love them. Those of you who have focused mainly on the films through the years find it hard to imagine just how deeply some readers know this material and just how important it is to them. They have history. They're invested. When something reminds Obi-Wan of Jabim, the readers know that grim tale. They live through it with these characters. Longtime readers have followed these folks through decades of drama featuring brain-melting horrors, unbreakable friendships, and an astonishing amount of stuff that can crush your heart and make you laugh in the same story. These readers have been through a lot with these people. I genuinely believed that I needed the EU to make this story work as a novel. It would give the story heft and texture. It would let me touch on where these people come from and where most of them are going to end up. And it would let me weave the specific narrative and its implications into the wider historical context of the whole galaxy far, far away. I also wanted to find a way to share with more casual readers, the vast majority, some of the depth of field immersion that the longtime readers get to experience. So my escort walked me into the room, and introductions were made, and I'm pretty sure I must have stammered something about how privileged I felt to have been tabbed for the project. But I honestly don't remember. I had my mind on the pitch. Alongside Mr. Lucas was Howard Rothman, the big cheese at Lucas Licensing, the editorial team from Lucasfilm, and my publisher from Del Rey, all of whom I'd spent the last evening sounding out how to best present my pitch. So here I am, my big moment. We settle into a beautiful cream leather lounge set in a breakout area at one end of the conference room. I'm in the armchair with my notes on the ottoman in front of me. Mr. Lucas is on the love seat. Somebody fires up a tape recorder and I don't have to take notes, and I ease into my pitch. My plan had been to lead with some topics I'd prepared to know whether he agreed with my approach to them. Jedi philosophy, the nature of the Force, the implications of the Chosen One prophecy, stuff like that. The meeting's scheduled for 2 or 3 hours, and halfway through, I've covered only 5 or 6 out of about 30 of those topics. There is a lot of never-published Jedi lore in that man's head. I can't wait any longer to start the scary part of my argument. I screw my courage to the sticking place, but even so, I'm too nervous to just roll it out without first dipping a toe in the water. So, going forward, when I'm into, the actual writing, I begin, desperately faking a mild, oh, by the way tone. How close do you want me to stick to the script? Are you looking for a scene-for-scene rendering? Like, for example, do you want me to use your dialogue? Or he cuts me off with a hand wave and proceeds to demonstrate one of the reasons George Lucas grew up to be, well, George Lucas. The brand name. The legend we all know him to be. To this day, I can see the twinkle in his eye and hear the chuckle in his voice. Don't worry about that stuff. As long as you don't violate the story, do whatever you want. Mr. Lucas says straight to my astonished face, "Just make it good." Blinking and gaping while a 1,000 voice choir of angels roared the hallelujah chorus inside my brain, I managed to vow, I will absolutely give it everything I've got. That's the story of my pitch. All of it. I never even had to bring anything else up, which could have been the punchline of this story, except for one salient feature. In all the days I'd spent working out arguments to convince them to let me tell this story my way, I'd entirely neglected to work out how I should go about making my way actually, work. I had no plan. Any good ideas I might have had were buried under innumerable crummy ones. Writing every scene turned out to be a process of trying every approach I could think of until I found one that felt right. This might help explain some of the more idiosyncratic storytelling you'll find in this book. That weird stuff shows up when I just couldn't think of a conventional way to create an equivalent effect. Back in my showbiz years, the best director I had ever worked under was notorious for never telling his actors how to play a scene. We just run it until he saw something he didn't like. A direction I frequently got was, I don't know what you were going for there, but it didn't work. Try something different. So we'd keep on trying something different until we received the coveted, okay, that works, keep it in. The main reason this book turned out to feel more like a novel than a dumpster fire is that I had great editors. Sue Rostany, Shelley Shapiro, and their teams on both coasts, including the great editor in the sky, Walker Ranch Mansion House, were there to tell me when I needed to try something different. Knowing they had my back gave me the courage to try a lot of things that your writing teachers probably told you to never, ever do. Because when it works, keep it in. Matthew Stover. Wow, that was like holy preface, dude. Goodness gracious. So, I mean, that right there kind of highlights the difference between Disney and old Lucasfilm. Old Lucasfilm, everyone who came to Star Wars, who came to work on Star Wars, had to earn it. They had to know the lore. They had to know the story. They had to know the material. But once George saw that they knew the material, he didn't care what exactly they did with it. They could bend, they could stretch, they could do different things, but they just couldn't break the bare bones foundations, and that's Matthew Stover's whole message, is that, George just literally let him do whatever. So, I mean, that's why it's as good as it is, like Disney, their whole philosophy is that they don't have rules, that anyone can come into Star Wars and there's no lore tying you down. There's no one person telling you no. But obviously, we know that that's not true with all of the things that happen. I mean, The Hunt for Ben Solo is a perfect example. You had Lucasfilm and all them read it and approve it, and then Disney comes in and they're like, no. Right? So these are the kinds of things that, like, just don't really, Disney really is controlling. They're hyper controlling over a story they don't even understand, where George was kind of lenient on a story that was his entire life, because he hired people who knew what they were doing, so he didn't have to worry about it. Do you see it's insane. Between this and the Art of the Force Unleashed book, where you see these creatives in their process of writing and whatever, like, you just see the penultimate difference between this and the production of Solo: A Star Wars Story, which was a fucking disaster. Luckily, the movie turned out really good, but the production is a disastrous tale. Honestly, Solo and Rogue One. You had original writers and whatever that were fired, and then they brought new people in, and then they brought Ron Howard in. I'm talking Solo. They had 2 writers, 2 directors in. Them and Lucasfilm were clashing on creative wise. They fired them. They brought in new people. Then they brought in Ron Howard, and then this, and that, and then George, and then it's like it was the biggest disaster ever. I have no idea how that movie is as good as it was with how messy production was. Because when you don't have structure, when you have no kind of structure for your story, for your vision, then that shit's gonna happen all the time because there is no structure to live by, and that's the problem in general with these big studios is they don't have that. They don't have vision, and when you don't have vision, you can't properly create. And that's something that I've learned at the ripe age of 17 already. You cannot create with no vision. Stories are not a product. Stories are art, and you have to treat them as art like George did. He's not going to say you have to do A, B, C, and D, but he's also not going to say, you can change the entire meaning of the Force in one book, right? Like, that's the difference. What is it? It's balance. It's this balance of structure and creativity that all creatives need. Because when you're just unhinged, like, look at modern art. It's shit. Like, it just means nothing. It's dots all over a can. Like it doesn't mean anything. But then you have, like, films by really strong creatives who, like, make it mean something physically. And they're not doing all these stupid, abstract things to, like, only be able to reach one audience. Like, that's not happening here. Matthew Stover wrote this book with George and made it accessible to everyone, and it's as good as it can be. Another great example of an artist with, I'd say some level of, well, I don't know if, Kanye might be the only artist who literally has zero structure and just does it every time. He probably does. Structures like can be routine too, like on how you make your music or how you make your art or whatever. Most people have this way of thinking. They are hyper locked on one thing. You know what I'm saying? Where, like, Disney is just a board of executives going, this will make money, I think. I don't think this will make money. I think this will make, right? And it's just, that's all it is now. It's not art. There's no vision. And that's why you have people bickering and arguing over things, right? Like in boardrooms, because Star Wars would never have gotten made if it was reliant totally on studios. It would never have gotten made. And that's the difference, is those movies that are really, really good are risky. They're risky, they're different, they're new, and those are the movies that are never produced by a big studio, that are never produced by A24, that are never produced by the studio giants like, Universal and Disney and Warner and Paramount, because they get scared of a loss. So they just don't do it. They don't go for it. And then they freeze up. And it's like, all the best movies have been done independently. When you think about it, like let's think. Star Wars, that's Lucasfilm Limited, an independent company with Fox handling distribution. Marvel, Iron Man, independent film. What would be another independent movie? I believe I think a lot of Tarantino's films, I don't want to be 100%, but I believe a lot of Tarantino's films are also independent fully as well. Like, there are a lot of movies out there where they'll maybe have a studio logo at the beginning, but that's just because they don't want to deal with having to pay the theaters to release it, so they just ship it to another studio and they say, hey, can you put these in theaters? And they pay the studio a little bit and they throw it in that's all that is. So there are even more movies that, you know, I'm not thinking of right now that are 100% independent, you know, and there's not a lot. Like Chris Nolan's movies are all really ambitious, really crazy, and he couldn't even get into film school because all of the way he thought and processed things were so different, you know, that like we're like, why is he like that? This isn't gonna work because everyone else does it this way. Why won't it work that way? You know, and they just didn't accept him in anywhere. And now look, he's like one of the biggest filmmakers of all time, right? This happens repeatedly. I mean, repeatedly. You have George Lucas, Jon Favreau, Steven Spielberg, Coppola, you know, and it goes on and on. Every one of those big artists were perceived as little, uncreative, dry, boring artists, you know, because they weren't fine art makers. You know, they weren't making a film about a wall, a paint drying on a wall. You know, they were making actual art that actually can connect with people, you know, that you can actually see yourself in, you know, that they were making a spectacle, they're making wonder. And that is why we are where we are right now. And that just note alone showed the true creative process. Kanye said this too. When you shouldn't have a bunch of uncreative people running labels or companies or whatever of creative people. That doesn't work because they don't see the vision. They don't have vision. Uncreative people don't have vision. They're just analytical bots. A creative people should be running a business for creative people. You should never have uncreative people in a creative business whatsoever. I'm a student producer. That's my thing. I handle all the business stuff, whatever. But ultimately, what I care most about is the art of film. And you shouldn't be in the film industry if you just simply don't care about cinema as an art form. You just shouldn't. And unfortunately, the vast majority of all these business guys are like, you know, I was at Amazon for a little bit and then I came over to fucking Walt Disney Company and now I'm doing their business over there. It's like, no. Yes, you need those people, but everyone at those companies should be a creative. They should have creative vision. Even someone filling out spreadsheets in a company like that should have creative vision. They should care about what they're doing. You don't want to just have all these bots because they pollute and they ruin everything. And Lucasfilm, at the time that this was written, was that creative company that, you know, everyone there cared about it. You know, everyone there was a creative. And like, look at Rick McCallum. Like, he was just the producer, but he saw George's vision and he saw what George was going for, and he was able to visualize in his head where certain things were going to be in different shots. And he was like, wait, what if we use this? What if we use Lake Como and we overlay, right? It's like he was thinking that way. He was thinking out of the box, and he wasn't being this type A analytical guy who's like, that's kind of expensive. Like, he's like not doing that, you know? He's like, sure, that's expensive, but we could do this, and this to drop the price down. That is a creative producer. There's producers and there's creative producers. I am a creative producer. Lots of good producers are creative producers. And that is the only way you can run the entertainment business, is with creative producers. That is it. Moving on. That's my little lecture about that. Yeah. So I'm going to read a couple of the footnotes too. And we'll just see what's going on here. This story happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It is already over. Nothing can be done to change it. It is a story of love and loss, brotherhood and betrayal, courage and sacrifice, and the death of dreams. It is a story of the blurred line between our best and our worst. It is the story of the end of an age, a strange thing about stories. Though this all happened so long ago and so far away that worlds cannot describe the time or the distance, it is also happening right now, right here. It is happening as you read these words. Okay, footnote 1. Star Wars always opens with a direct address to the audience, as do so many folk tales and fairy tales. I expanded the classic setup of a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away to be explicit about why this story is a different animal from the Star Wars media that had come before it, to create a different set of expectations. Back to the novel. This is how 25 millennia can come to a close. Corruption and treachery have crushed 1,000 years of peace. This is not just the end of a republic. Night is falling on civilization itself. This is the twilight of the Jedi. The end starts now. Footnote 2. One of the big tricks in the Greek tragedies was something Aristotle would call dramatic irony, basically referring to when you, the reader, know what's going to happen, but none of the characters do. Done properly, this technique transforms happy anticipation into creeping dread. I always hear people say, "Oh, it was Alfred Hitchcock who made dramatic irony." It's like, no. That was way back in Greek times where that became a thing, buddy. Like, you're not all that, man. Like, people acted like that's his thing, and I'm like, that is not his thing. Aristotle used that way, way before. It's so stupid, dude. Oh my gosh. Okay, introduction, the Age of Heroes. The skies of Coruscant blaze with war. Footnote 1. I wanted to expand the traditional setup of an opening crawl into something more like a really long establishing shot, to sketch the bigger context around the action that's about to begin. Context rules everything. It's what creates meaning. A punch in the mouth means one thing in a boxing ring, but something else in your mom's kitchen. Hold on. A punch in the mouth means one thing in a boxing ring, but something else in your mom's kitchen. That is a tough line. Holy moly. Wow. Okay. I see the vision. See? Artist sees George's vision. George sees artist's vision. I see artist's vision. I see George's vision. Do you see? Creative people, we think alike. We think, we understand, and it's like we think a totally different way than the typical folk. And there's very few of us, but we are, we think very differently. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's see this footnote here. Live via HoloNet. Footnote 3. Events and people in this bit are meant to represent the general population's media-driven take on the war, because understanding what people think is happening, even when they're wrong, helps put you in their place. I probably got the idea from the Clone Wars Online HoloNet feature, which fans would sometimes refer to as in-universe Republic propaganda, if I recall correctly. The idea that the folks of the galaxy know the Jedi mostly through carefully curated stories spread through popular media also ends up playing a major role in my novel, Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor. Cool. Okay, back to the novel. But here's a strange thing. Few of the younglings need comfort. It is instead the younglings who offer comfort to their elders. Across the Republic, in words or pheromones, in magnetic pulses, tentacle braids, or mental telepathy, the message from the younglings is the same. Don't worry, it'll be all right. Footnote 4. This is a little bit of literary magic to cement Anakin and Obi-Wan as larger than life. Oh, sorry, back to the novel. Don't worry, it'll be all right. Anakin and Obi-Wan will be there any minute. Footnote 4. This is a little bit of literary magic to cement Anakin and Obi-Wan as larger-than-life heroes of myth and legend. I show people in universe who already see them that way. And this passage, with its explicitly childlike mythologizing... What the fuck? And this passage, with its explicitly childlike mythologizing, is there for a foretaste of how shattering their heartbreak will inevitably be when it all goes south. Dramatic irony at work. You're welcome. I love his, like, his what's the word? Like, Matthew Stover has this, like, I don't know, this tone, flavor to the way he talks, and he's always throwing, like, these comments constantly. I don't know, it's funny. I like it. Kind of like Starkey a little bit, you know? Though this is the Age of Heroes, it has saved its best for last. Oh, shit. Footnote 5. The narrative voice in this entire opening is distinctly more formalized and elevated than the close-up narrative that opens Chapter 1. This is what I call storyteller mode. I use it in a lot of different ways in this book. The style and usage of storyteller mode in this book is directly inspired by Evangeline Walton's prose retellings of the Mabinogion, because there's never been anyone better. Fans of the 20th century weird fiction might detect some echoes of Shirley Jackson as well. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, there is so much material in here. This is crazy. I want to get to the fight. Yeah, we're gonna skip. We're gonna just skip around because this will literally take me ages to go through all of the stuff in here. I mean, it's crazy. This is like the Revenge of the Sith Bible. Like, really. What is this? Yo, what the heck? There's like this whole thing in here. What the heck? The dark is generous. Its first gift is concealment. Our true faces in the dark lie in the dark beneath our skins. True hearts remain shadow deeper still. But the greatest concealment lies not in protecting our secret truths, but in hiding from us the truths of others. The dark protects us from what we dare not know. Its second gift is comforting illusion, the ease of gentle dreams in night's embrace, the beauty that imagination brings to what would repel in day's harsh light. But the greatest of its comforts is the illusion that the dark is temporary, that every night brings a new day, because it is day that is temporary. Day is the illusion. Its third gift is the light itself, as days are defined by the nights that divide them, as stars are defined by the infinite black through which they wheel. The dark embraces the light and brings it forth from the center of its own self. With each victory of the light, it is the dark that wins. Wow, that's like a lot. Here's the footnote. These brief passages on dark and light were originally inspired by how many of the important things you come across in Star Wars are dark, or something or others, Dark Lord, Dark Saber, Dark Disciple, etc. Which got me thinking, well, what exactly is this dark that everybody's naming things for? Is dark some property that all these different things share, or is it a thing in and of itself? What makes dark, well, dark? The bits published here aren't supposed to be answers, of course. The idea was to direct your attention towards specific elements and implications of the section you're about to read. It's basically the narrator pausing to say, this is what the next bit is going to be about. Remember it while you read, and you'll understand what's really going on. I had previously played with myth coding teasers in my New Jedi Order novel Trader, and before that, my Acts of Cain fantasy novel, Blade of Tishale. So I already had some idea what sorts of effects I could get from them. You know, this is a 10 out of 10. This book is top 5 Star Wars book. No, this is number 1. Yeah, this is better than Plagueis. You know, I'd always done Plagueis, Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader, Deceived, Yoda, Dark Rendezvous, and what's the other one? Heir to the... No, I don't think Heir to the Empire. I need the Legends timeline. See, I wish I could just open this up to the Legends timeline. That would be just so complete, but I have one in here. Okay, here we go. That's right, Darth Bane. I'm so stupid. Yeah, Darth Bane, Plagueis, Deceived, Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader, Kenobi. Those were always my favorites. Those were always my favorite ones. And then I was always like, oh, I can't rank the novels as, you know, favorite books because, you know, they're movies and I don't think that's fair. But now I'm like, this is very different. I mean, with the context and seeing, like, this is very much its own thing. And at that point, I'd say, you know, I've said that the Revenge novel is my favorite Star Wars book before, but now I'm even more on that. I think this just is so clearly the best, you know, honestly. So, yeah. Anyways. Chapter 1, Anakin and Obi-Wan. Already there is a footnote. This chapter contains exactly what it says on the tin. The Skywalker Kenobi team in action at the very top of their form, every bit of the larger-than-life heroes that the whole Republic thinks they are, and those younglings know they are. Also, catastrophes and cries are just plain golden for dramatizing all kinds of emotional bonds and psychological stressors. People under that kind of pressure can't hide who they really are. Many people have asked, occasionally with some derision, why the opening battle and the Chancellor's rescue take up roughly a quarter of the book, when it only lasts 15 minutes or so on screen. The answer is, nobody told me it'd run for only 15 minutes. In the 129-page script, Anakin lands the crippled battleship on page 34. For me, having an extended space battle open with the story was a gift. The actual progress of that battle, how the good guys win, was practically the only plot business that fans wouldn't know in advance. I milked it for everything it was worth. So he's just saying, like, he has the full opening in his book, and he didn't know that it was going to be cut down, which is great. And that's what I remember when I read the book for the first time. I was like, wait, this is so much longer. You know, I was like, why is this so long? Like, we were still here. You know, and then I saw that it was, this is way back. I haven't read this book in years. Like, years. I don't even remember the last time I read it. It's been a long time. Oh, yeah. I gotta reread this. I'm gonna reread the whole book. It's great. It really is. Okay. mean, this is just insane. Like, I don't know, because I keep going like, I'll go to this part, and then I just see more stuff in between, and I'm like, oh, holy. Let's go to the Mustafar fight. Okay. The flaw. Okay, this is the fight. I'll read. Durasteel fingers sprang open and a lightsaber tumbled free. Obi-Wan reached. Anakin's lightsaber twisted in the air and flipped into his hand. He poised both blades in a cross before him. The flaw of power is arrogance. Footnote 7. The script has Anakin dropping his lightsaber when Obi-Wan trips him, which felt a little slapsticky to me for an epic duel to the death. Obi-Wan's line here is word for word from the script, because when you're right, you're right. The test of strength while Obi-Wan holds both lightsabers is from the script. The final version of the film ended up going in a different way. That's very interesting. What is this? It's like a treasure hunt. Like, I'm just like... just digging around. What is this? Many, many years before he had to pass the trials of the Jedi Knighthood and sworn himself to the Jedi forever, in the end, he was still Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he was still a Jedi, and he would not murder a helpless man. Footnote 10. This is where I was going with Obi-Wan from the beginning. He has to be exactly the great Jedi he's become because his fundamental decency and trust in the Force in this apocalyptic moment is what Star Wars is really about. If he'd made the other choice, the Sith would have ruled the galaxy forever. Think about it. I'm not wrong. That's true. And he was talking here like that he didn't go down there and just kill Anakin like that, you know, and that Obi-Wan always sticks to his fundamental values no matter what, and there's nothing you could do to make him make that other decision. And, you know, he's not wrong about that. That is true. Okay, where is this footnote? As it sometimes had these past 13 years when the Force spoke to him, it was in the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn. Footnote 1. The scene is straight from the script, but in the film Yoda merely mentions the conversation to Obi-Wan. One of the things I really like is the way it suggests why Luke, as a grown-up Jedi, might go about things more like Qui-Gon, a Jedi he never met, than like the Jedi he knows. Holy... Okay, let's read this bit. This is great writing. He spoke softly, but not to himself, though no one was with him. He was not alone. My failure this was. Failed the Jedi, I did. He spoke to the Force, and the Force answered him. Do not blame yourself, my old friend. And then this is where I read the thing earlier, Qui-Gon Jinn. Too old I was, Yoda said. Too rigid. Too arrogant to see that the old way is not the only way. These Jedi I trained to become the Jedi who had trained me long centuries ago, but those ancient Jedi of a different time they were. Changed has the galaxy. Change the order did not, because let it change, I did not. More easily said than done, my friend. An infinite mystery is the Force. Yoda lifted his head and turned his gaze out into the wheel of stars. Much to learn, there still is, and you will have time to learn it. Infinite knowledge, Yoda shook his head. Infinite time does that require. With my help, you can learn to join the Force, yet retain consciousness. You can join your light to it forever, perhaps in time, even your physical self. Yoda did not move. Eternal life, the ultimate goal of the Sith, yet they can never achieve it. It comes only by the release of self, not the exaltation of self. It comes through compassion, not greed. Love is the answer to the darkness. Holy crap, dude. I gotta go reread this whole book. Goodness gracious. Okay, here's the last section we'll read before we call it. Maybe. No, we're gonna do a couple more. Oh, what? There's a whole short story in here? What the shit? Okay. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker forever. The first dawn of light in your universe brings pain. The light burns you. It will always burn you. Part of you will always lie upon black glass, sand beside a lake of fire while flames chew upon your flesh. You can hear yourself breathing. It comes hard and harsh, and it scrapes nerves already raw, but you cannot stop it. You can never stop it. You cannot even slow it down. You don't even have lungs anymore. Mechanisms hardwired into your chest breathe for you. They will pump oxygen into your bloodstream forever. Lord Vader. Lord Vader, can you hear me? Footnote 3. This is the second most famous passage I've ever written, which is nice because I think this scene in the film is the actual, real-life, no-kidding pivotal moment of the whole Skywalker saga. All the tricks, stylized prose, shifting narrative voices, and mystical musings on the dark were rolled out specifically because I wanted this scene to hit like a falling moon. Not because I planned to write it this way from the beginning, you understand. What you're reading here is what I discovered I could do once I had done all that other stuff first. Because Mr. Lucas told me to make it good, and I couldn't think of anything better. Okay, so the ending's different. On Alderaan, the prince consort delivers a baby girl into the loving arms of his queen. And on Tatooine, a Jedi Master brings an infant boy to the homestead of Owen and Beru Lars. And then he rides his Eopie off into the Jundland Waste toward the setting suns. Footnote 4. I love how the film's closing image is a twin sunset that echoes the iconic one from A New Hope. But that's not something I can pull off in print. So I decided to evoke the classic final shot from a different genre. Obi-Wan literally rides off into the sunsets. The dark is generous, and it is patient, and it always wins. But in the heart of its strength lies weakness. One lone candle is enough to hold it back. Love is more than a candle. Love can ignite the stars. Footnote 1. Remember what I said earlier about the rule of 3? This is the punchline. It's also my version of the central message of Star Wars. And it's why This Is How It Feels to Be Anakin Skywalker Forever is my second most famous passage. Revenge of the Sith, Deluxe Edition by Matthew Stover and George Lucas. Done. 10 out of 10. I haven't even scratched the surface. I've not even scratched the surface of everything in here. There's so much to unpack, and there's so many footnotes I haven't read. Who knows how many of those other things there are in there? Those like they're like black boxes. Here, I'll show you the one I just read. That I don't know, have some like philosophical thing to them. Yeah, like yeah, that's you know, I have said before that I think the revenge novel, you know, it's a novel, it's a book. I don't think it's fair to compare it to the movie because like you can't describe someone's head in a movie. So it's like, you know, I don't know. I don't know. In ways, it's better than the movie. But then in other ways, I'm like, no. You know, it's like you can't really compare. You can't compare the two. You know, it's hard. But yeah, it's really, really phenomenal. And if you're going to get this book, please get it in the deluxe edition. This retails for $60, but you can find it on Walmart for $40 for some reason right now. So go get it from Walmart and they'll deliver it to you. Takes a while. It takes about like a week, but just do it anyways. It's great. Yeah, 10 out of 10. I have nothing negative to say about this. You know, the canon timeline's there. That's kind of annoying, but I don't care. I mean, the rest of this project is way well worth, you know, having a canon timeline in the book. So, yeah, go get it. Deluxe edition, Revenge of the Sith. May the Force be with you. Bye-bye.